LA Magazine. Los Angeles Magazine.
Boy, our friends.
Flabla. That's right. For LA by LA. It's the magazine of Los Angeles.
Very good magazine.
In the 60s, there was no magazine that was just about the goings-on around LA. Some tried, but they were all just weak imitations of the New Yorker, and all of them failed. At this time, there were no magazines just about a city at all, anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like it just didn't. There was something in Philadelphia, and San Diego had something going on, from what I can tell. But the modern city magazine, as we know it, didn't exist until this one came around. Mm-hmm. They created that city magazine genre, and it was started by two people. The first was George Jeffrey Miller, born August 1st, 1936 in Salt Lake City, and his family moved to Beverly Hills when he was just a few months old. When Miller was 13, he was an altar boy at Elizabeth Taylor's first wedding to Conrad Hilton Jr.
Really?
Yeah, the son of the founder of Hilton Hotels. That marriage lasted 8 months, and Hilton went on to have an affair with Zsa Zsa Gabor in 1944, who was his stepmom. Gross digression that I insist we take. Yeah. Miller went to Good Shepherd and Loyola High, and then went on to get his master's degree in journalism from UCLA in 1959, and was working on a magazine as part of his final project or whatever, when he met an advertising man named David Brown. Miller's magazine was going to be about urban arts, but Brown convinced him to make it into something that celebrated Los Angeles, to celebrate the unruly young city in all its contrary glory. It would accept the community on its own terms as the collection of villages it truly was, still looking for an identity, not a center. So in the summer of 1960, the two men hand-cut and pasted together the first issue of the Southern California Prompter. In 1961, it promptly was renamed Los Angeles Magazine. Their tagline, Guide to the Good Life in LA and Suburbia.
That's nice.
Yeah. So you can feel the sunglasses sliding onto your face. Their offices were on Rodeo Drive before it was an expensive area, and they had $50,000 in startup funds and a staff of 6 to 8, and they quickly started losing money and staff. Within a year, they were out of money, but Brown kept the lights on by skipping a few issues to save money until they secured more funding from Harry Volk, who was the head of Union Bank. It was, and it still is, a monthly magazine. Early issues ranged from 48 to 64 pages and had no art or pictures in it.
Oh my God.
Because I was out of the budget. Just blocks of text. They weren't pretty.
Like Daniel likes.
The perfect magazine. Yeah. Information given to me efficiently.
No paragraph breaks. Just give me all the words.
Pour the ink on it. I'll make the words.
Like it was written by Jack Torrance. Go ahead.
All work and no Los Angeles Magazine make Jack a dull boy. So they were ugly. They weren't good to look at. But what they had going on for them was that they were so well written. The articles were witty and they were lively. Most of the writers they had working for them just wrote for them as extra work apart from their regular writing jobs at Time Life, which had headquarters nearby their headquarters. These were people like Jim Murray, who went on to be a Pulitzer Prize winning sports writer, Charles Champlin, who went on to be a silent movie star.
Tramp.
He was a big film critic. And then there was Art Seidenbaum, who went on to be the LA Times book editor and founder of the LA Times Book Prize. Some more recognizable names they managed to trick into writing for them was Carolyn C., Joseph Wambach, Bud Schulberg, Ray Bradbury, Harlan Ellison, and Robert Towne, writer of Chinatown, and its Godfather 2 of sequels, The Two Jakes.
They did a really great crime issue, and
much later on,
but it was a fantastic thing. Michelle McNamara, the late wife of Patton Oswalt, wrote a thing about the Golden State Killer when she was like an extensive researcher on the subject
in Los Angeles Magazine.
And it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite things I've ever read in my life.
There weren't many regular writers for the magazine, so to keep people from thinking correctly that the whole magazine was being written by the same three people, they also used pseudonyms, much like Don Carlos Loomis. These early writers were being paid between 2 and 5 cents a word, but often were offered stock in the magazine instead of pay because they just didn't have money.
We're going to make it one day, then you'll get paid.
All of this stock will be as good as money, but it's not.
Don't spend it yet.
Their first permanent film critic was a friend of Miller's from UCLA named Bert Prelutsky, who would be very critical of movies at a time when most publications weren't very critical of movies. He went on to write for MASH.
I thought MASH was a magazine I'd never heard of.
So MASH magazine? Albert E. Mashman?
Same guy, right?
So he's almost the same. He doesn't have a gap in his teeth. Alfred
Newman.
In the early 70s, the magazine was still struggling financially, and the much younger New York Magazine kept offering to buy them out. But New York Magazine was struggling too, so that never happened. Instead, in 1973, Brown stepped down. That was the Variety headline.
Brown downtown.
LA was sold to Seth Baker, the whole city, who ushered in a new era for the magazine. To try to attract more readers, they came up with special features that are now the staple of all city-focused magazines in the country, like the restaurant issue, the best and worst issue, real estate estate guide, best schools. Their 52 great weekends in May became an annual tradition that they still do for Los Angeles. They created all of those tropes that you see in everything that you read now.
Like the LA Weekly.
Yeah. They had things like event calendars and personality profiles, but they became known, for better or worse, for being focused on celebrity and fine living. They were seen as being obsessed with celebrity, so much so that they're credited with inventing celebrity journalism. What an honor.
Yeah.
A lot of that was just based on their covers, though, because Baker pushed them to use LA's greatest natural resource on their covers, celebrities. So this was something that only fan magazines did regularly. So they
Tiger Beat.
so they were worried it would make them seem too Hollywood-centric. So to get over that, they put the celebrities doing like playful things and didn't make them seem glamorous, but rather like regular residents of the city. The April 1977 cover with Farrah Fawcett went on to be her second best-selling poster ever.
Really?
She's on all fours like, hi.
Not the one with the red shirt where she's like, hair kicked back?
Is she on all fours?
No.
Then no.
Okay.
This one, she's on all fours.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. Arms and legs.
She's playing the
ground.
drums.
Yeah, 4x4. This new visual era, the magazine brought in a lot more art and photography to the issues with guys like Herb Ritz, Matthew Rolston, Greg Gorman, and Terry Gilliam.
Oh, wow.
The one you're thinking of. By 1974, their circulation was up to 17,000, but with the 70s came not only unshaven disco boogies, but also local competition. The LA Times didn't have music, film, or food critics at the time like LA Magazine did, so they decided to steal all of them from them. So they got them all. On top of that, in 1976, New York Magazine launched a direct competitor in LA called New West. It followed the same format as New York Magazine, only for Los Angeles. Their launch was heralded by a huge ad campaign that denied the existence of LA Magazine and then hired all the writers they had left to work for them.
Yikes.
So their big money back promotion worked and they were pretty successful, but the popularity of a New York funded magazine about Los Angeles made rich New York advertisers aware of the Los Angeles market. So they started running ads in Los Angeles Magazine themselves. So now LA Magazine had not only local ads, which New West couldn't get a hold on because LA Magazine, they were loyal to them. So now they had that and also national ads. And then they caught another break when an LA-based Time Magazine writer wrote an article about the New West LA Magazine rivalry and painted LA Magazine as the good guy. And then this article got media companies interested in the magazine like ABC, who bought them in 1977. And then with ABC behind them, they went from 79,000 subscribers in 1977 to 172,000 in 1979. They got so many advertisers through ABC that at their peak, one issue had 600 pages in it. Over half of them were ads. Imagine 300 pages of advertisements.
I would have to read every one because I'm a completist.
Yeah, and buy them all.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go bankrupt. In 1978 and 79, they had more ad pages than any other monthly magazine in the country. Ridiculous, but successful. With the end of the 70s and the country getting more serious, suddenly articles about Alfred Hitchcock's favorite place to eat a turkey or whatever they were doing, it wasn't legitimate enough. So they shifted their reporting to things that were more hard-hitting and deep digging. They did stories criticizing the local government for not preserving city history. In 1978, they did one on the bad water quality in LA. Around this time, they were nominated for a National Magazine Award for General Excellence, who served in World War II.
Nothing specific, really general excellence, though.
In the late 80s, they did an expose on the Billionaire Boys Club and the McMartin preschool case. Miller stepped down as editor in 1990 and acted as publisher for 4 years before retiring for good. He left the magazine with the circulation of over 160,000. Miller died on April 16, 2011 at age 74 of a rare brain disorder called progressive supranuclear palsy. Brown had died April 18, 1989 of bone cancer at age 62.
Yikes.
So don't get into the... don't go in the printing room.
Step back.
During the 90s, the magazine went through different phases trying to reinvent itself. In 1995, Robert Sam Anson became editor and he focused the magazine just on putting down Hollywood. He was fired after 5 months. Spencer Beck made fashion its focus for 3 years. In the year 2000, it was sold to Emis Communications for $30 million and Kit Rashlis became editor. He came from the LA Times and the Village Voice and LA Weekly, and he brought with him like legitimate literary credentials and continued in that hard-hitting, in-depth tradition. Readership slowly went down, as it did with all magazines, and in 2011, circulation was around 140,000, and just this February of 2017, it was sold for $6.5 million to a Detroit company named Our Media Group, who ended up also getting Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Orange Coast magazines in the deal, and immediately over half a dozen high-ranking people, all women, including their editors, publisher, and head of digital strategy, were all laid off. off immediately. It's been hard for one magazine to try to unify and be relevant to a city that has so many different regions that all have distinct interests and needs. So it's going to be a lifelong process for LA Magazine to figure out exactly what it is, and what it probably won't stay for that long because the city, she's always changing. Again, another story whose ending is yet to be
determined.
Oh, they were just canceled also.
I didn't realize that Los Angeles Magazine was that old. I thought it was like a new recent thing.
Yeah, I don't know why you thought it was from like 3 years ago.
That's when I bought that copy of the magazine, and I never
Magazines
heard of it
don't
before.
exist until I buy it.
Yeah, no.